So, just as a brief introduction, so two of the most controversial bills introduced by the CAQ government is Bill 96 and Bill 21. Bill 96 is particularly a salient issue here, given the large population of Anglophones. So to start off the conversation, please state your party's general position on those two bills, and we'll go from there, and I'll give Bill a chance, considering it's his whole part, one of the main plank of his party, or give him a chance to start.
Absolutely and fundamentally against everything Bill 96, Bill 21, as well. I'm just going to throw in Bill 40 as well. Targeting Anglophones and minority rights in the province isn't the way to protect the French language. We need to be doing it in a constructive way, in a way that we're not bashing any other minority in the province. We need to be working with them. We need to be having different discussions on protecting rights. We don't need to be infringing upon them. So that's where my party stands.
Okay, and I'll go to Rick.
We have a more nuanced take on Bill 96 because there are some articles in it that are good, like French education program, like French speaking program in the workplace, protecting French in the workplace. However, we have a government that has used that bill to blame immigrants and English minorities for the decline in French in Quebec, when we know that decline is caused by subpar financial investment into the education system, into protecting French in the workplace, into integrating immigrants. That's why at Quebec Solidaire we're going to keep what's good in the bill, and we're going to remove and change what's bad in the bill. Like the 6 months delay for immigrants, that's totally unreal. That's irresponsible as a measure, because we know it takes more than 6 months to learn French, and when we need to invite immigrants to speak French instead of imposing French on them. The lack of recognition for indigenous languages also in the bill is just an example of the historical failure of the CAQ and previous parties in integrating, working with First People, First Nation to really work on reconciliation. So there are some bad things in the bill, but we're at Quebec Solidaire, we recognize that some things are good in it, and we're going to work to keep them and to improve on them with other programs.
Bill 96 and Bill 21 are both very divisive pieces of legislation. They take away rights, they take away services, in some cases they take away dreams, and I'm proud to have voted against these bills, and even though at the moment you are proud to vote against something, you know you're also sad because it means that people are losing some services and losing some rights. There are things that need to change in these legislations. There are massive parts of both these pieces of legislations that need to change. What we're proposing is to remove limits on CEGEPs, to remove the 6 months requirement for new Quebecers to get services, the part on First Nations as well, as was just explained, remove restrictions for small businesses, remove anything to do with healthcare, because anything to do with healthcare on Bill 96 basically makes it so that people will not be able to get services in their own language, and on healthcare you have to understand every little thing that a healthcare professional tells you, and most of all, remove the doctor's tenure clause, because they are basically, both these bills are saying that they are now above the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and that is simply, it is simply stating the fact, very obviously, by the Premier, by government, that his bills are more important than people's rights and freedoms. And that I will fundamentally disagree with. But what the CAQ is telling people at this point is that they don't want the English community's vote. They're showing it tonight by not being here. The Premier is showing it by not taking part in English debates, by removing anything to do on his website with English, and by refusing to fund English institutions at the same level as he does French language institutions. So there are very clear divides between us, the governing party, Conservative Party, and Quebec Solidaire on this, and I certainly intend to delve into the issue as my colleagues expect around the table.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, well, the official position of the Green Party of Quebec is I think they're the strongest against both bills. My personal view on it, and I already talked to Mr. Terrell about this. I think, well, first of all, if we had a proportional voting system in Quebec for these two laws would be fine at the end, because we would have a consensus around the table instead of having just one party leading the whole thing with, let's say, not a stubborn attitude, but, not an open-minded attitude. And I believe, like, the English community deserves better than what's in there. And we should not, we should respect the people, like in Pontiac, it's people were born here. I mean, they're not from the outside. I mean, it's their land, it's their country, it's their province, just as much as my province or my country. So I think they deserve better respect, regarding what we do with our language. Now the CEGEP, to restrict the admissions, I mean, I don't think the bill is restricting for the English-spoken people, but from restricting the French people to go to CEGEP, I think there's probably some good reason in the back, because other CEGEP are losing their students. Maybe so it needs to be looked at again. I don't know all the details, but I kind of understand, that the appeal for people to go to an English college, even for a French person, is more attractive, so they go, right? So, and I agree with you, 6 months to learn French. I learned English in, 6 months when I was in the armed forces, when I was 20 years old, and it's not perfect, and I had the occasion to, so I think 6 months is really not sufficient. And there's a few rules, like C21 is the same thing. I think we have concerns, about, that the, religions from, outside of, from, let's say, Islamic or, other, they can bring, let's say, had some bad repercussion on our, stability in our country, the right of women, stuff like that. I think we need to be careful, but we need to have a second discussion. C21 is clearly, it goes really too far, in my opinion. It's not necessary, and so I will let Mr.
The famous or infamous Bill 96. Quebec Conservative Party is the only major party, don't get me wrong, Will, but it's the only major party that will repeal, that will revoke it. Why? Because it is so divisive. Let me speak French. Il est primordial de préserver le français au Québec. Et ceci est très important pour le Parti conservateur. With that being said, Bill 96 has to be repealed, revoked, removed. Regarding Bill 21, the Quebec Conservative Party is in favor of a neutral state. It is very important. Myself, do I think it does go too far? Yes. I don't think so. Should a teacher would be able to wear whatever she wants? Yes, I think so. Should the cop? No, I don't think so. That's my personal opinion on it. That's about it.
If we're open to
Yeah,
debate this,
open it up.
I would like to delve into that just a little bit, Mr. Waters, because the official party position
Yeah.
of the Conservative Party
Yeah.
is to go stricter on Bill 21. So I appreciate your personal vision.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what your party wants to, what additional restrictions your party wants to put in on
There's-
Bill 21?
There's no additional restrictions.
Well, there is. That's what your party leader says openly.
Yeah.
With that being said, if I'm ever elected, I'll be working to work on Bill 91 and
So
teaching
you will
that.
vote against your party line?
Yes, because we are allowed to, not unless someone is not
Okay,
here.
but that's not my question.
Yeah.
What are the additional restrictions
There's
that the Conservative Party of Quebec wants to put in?
There's no,
But you're disagreeing with your leader right now.
no.
Your leader says the
You are
exact
just-
opposite of what you're saying. Am I the only one who thinks this?
No,
You're not the only one.
Well, you know what? The good thing is that their leader's not going to be the prime minister of the next election. Okay, so we can use our time. But there's one thing I'd like to talk about, if you guys agree with it.
Well, I don't know. Terrence might disagree with you. Bill 21, I think
I
we're all
would
against it, except for Terrence's party. You're
No,
you have a more
the
influence.
CAQ is in favor. The
Yeah, they're not
Parti
here
québécois
to
is in
defend their
favor,
position.
yeah.
And you're
I think
They see-
the state must be neutral. Don't get me wrong. PCQ, Quebec Conservative Party, think the state must be neutral. That's very important.
No, you might think that, but your
No,
party wants to put more into
No,
Bill 21 and
he
be more
thinks the
aggressive with
state
it.
wants to be neutral. That's the basics of it.
Okay, well, we can stand here and disagree on what your leader has said, but we will.
Send me be welcome to text
People will be
people.
able to revisit the takes of every
Yeah.
bill on Bill
We
21. We can move
Yeah.
on.
I think this point has been made, and we
Yeah.
can move on from it.
There's one proposal that I have, is that, we always talk about, the Charter of Rights and stuff like that. What about a chart of obligation and responsibilities for our citizens and for, you know, everyone in our society.
Listening?
Well, but I mean, if at one point we need also to have just not rights, we need to have a chart of obligation. You know that everybody has an obligation to act, you know, properly. And if let's say. I'm talking about, let's say your religion or anything, you know, it goes against, you know, so you have an obligation to respect the law in Canada also. You know what I mean? Right now we only have kind of, I feel it's kind of unbalanced, right? And when we get to the specific laws like 96, but especially 21, that's where all the confusion comes in because it's not clear and nobody wants to discuss about it because it's taboo, right? Nobody wants to put their finger in the door, you know, because it's gonna hurt, you know, and it's gonna hurt politically. That's why the big parties are not talking about this because there's too much to lose.
Maybe just to complete your thought, what kind of obligation are you looking to impose on people? What, like you
Not to impose, like.
If it's an obligation,
If it's a law.
No, I mean it's an obligation towards, let's say, like to be.
Then it's just a social norm to be respectful.
Well, yeah, well, kind of, yeah. It's not an obligation.
General, that's good.
That's not a policy proposition. I mean, that's why I like that, but it's not a policy proposition.
Well, it's just to counterbalance a bit, like with the, you know, because it's always on the table, and I think that at one point we got to see, like, there's the common goal of society is also important, you know, and there's the personal rights of per person it is, but the balance, like how do you say, the
Equilibrium?
Yeah, equilibrium of the society is also important, and the common goal of you know, the provinces.
I
don't want to.
I might have an example for you, Pierre. For instance, if you go drive your car up west, up north, up to Rapid des Joachim, but you take the Quebec side, but you have to be responsible. You have to get the grip, you have to get the spare tires, you have to be responsible. Is that what you mean as a citizen of Quebec?
Okay, but
No,
that's the transport ministers.
Yeah.
Cars and
Let's go back to
Let me bring it back to specifically. So I'm very curious. There's a divide between people who would amend it. Amendments are obviously Quebec South Carolina, a lot of different things they would like to amend, and the parties that would like to repeal it completely. I would like if you guys could go into a little bit.
We gotta ditch this thing as fast as we can. Unfortunately, the CAC brought this in to divide Quebec. We want to end the division. Mr. Fortin, just before this, I watched you vote for it on the second reading. You helped push it through. You've even had liberal amendments. Don't laugh. You've backed the Anglophones into a corner. You betrayed the Anglophone vote in the Pontiac by helping with this. Yourself, Dominic Anglade, she said she was going to keep some of it, or pretty well most of it.
That's a nice line that you have. It's a nice
think.
communications line. But basically, the way the government works, and this is what you're trying to do. You're trying to get elected here. Is, as is everybody around the table, is that you vote on the principle of the bill. Principle of the bill, namely being the title of the bill, right? And then you actually look at all of the clauses. What you're saying here today is that you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't even look at all the clauses and debate them and try to make them better.
Not
because
for
that is
divisive as 96.
So you would sit on the sidelines while everybody else around the table says, how can I change this? Fully knowing there's a majority government and that they're going to pass it anyway. It's your responsibility as a member of the National Assembly, as a representative for Pontiac, to say, how can I change this, knowing it's going to pass at the end of the day, to make it better for your constituents. You're saying I would sit on the sidelines. That is irresponsible.
No. I'm not proposing that I'd sit by the sidelines. I'm going to sit through it every part of the way, being completely against this, bring the media to what's actually going
So
on.
you can't attack them on voting to debate. That's a normal thing in government. And you're talking about removing the bill entirely. That's not how government project works. You can't remove an entire bill. You need to amend certain projects or most of them. Do you have specific things you want to remove? Because you can't just trash the bill.
No, we
That's
need
not something
to.
you can.
The only way out of this would be a proportional voting system, or that the CAC agrees that this piece of legislature is not good and not appropriate and it needs a big change, and be open to have everybody sit at a table and make it more consensus among all the parties present at the National Assembly.
I mean-
The same thing with C21. Otherwise, I mean, the
But,
cap.
I mean, nobody's against changing the voting system, but we're talking about Bill 96 and what we're going to amend.
Yeah.
Can we come back onto the subject?
I think the
No,
purpose
but
here-
I'm back on the subject. It's the same concept. That's the only way out of this, and the CAC won't do it.
Okay.
And they're not here to defend
I
themselves.
think we all agree here, we have to protect French. We do all agree, sure. I think we all agree here, Bill 96 is divisive. We all agree here. I think we all agree here. I think Bill 96 has to be repealed or changed or modified. I think if every one of us is elected, it will work his heart and soul into that project.
So in my opening remarks on this topic, I highlighted exactly the issues that we want to remove from Bill 96. Mr. Sivaganzi has talked about the First Nations bill. What would you like to remove from it? Because your party has said you want to repeal it and bring in a new Bill 96.
That
So
would
what
merely be
is that? What would be in that new bill?
That new Bill 96 would bring some protective French language through
Such as?
immigration, give more services. It will not extend to CEGEP, it will not extend to French class in CEGEP, it will not extend to titles. Actually, if you buy a house in Pontiac, the
Fair enough.
title has to be in English. So you know what it is? It brings more paperwork. It means that when you buy a house, you will have the titles in English, in French, since 1st September this year. Then you will have to pay an extra $500 to get it translated. So for instance, instead of $2,000 fees, you will have $2,500 fees when you buy a house, if you speak English, if you only speak English. That's absurd. It has to change, absolutely.
So what you're talking about here is the provision that says that every legal document that goes to the Quebec government has to be in French. And so two Anglophones signing a piece of paper together then has to be translated, which means there's two classes of Quebecers, one that pay a certain fee and one that pay another fee. We'll agree with you, I'll absolutely agree with you on that. The one thing we have not talked about is what it means for small business owners here. And when I heard you, Mr. Waters, in your remarks in the paper a few weeks ago saying there is no evidence it would make much of a difference to the lives of regular people, those are your words about Bill 96. Well, regular people are students who want to go to Heritage College. Regular people are business owners who now face search and seizure of their work computers because of Bill 96. Regular people are people like Giant Tiger, Mountain View Turf, and Joanne's Value Mart here, who now have to put into their businesses francisation programs so that everything they do inside of their business is in French. Are those not regular people affected by the bill?
Oh yes, they are regular people. You're talking
And why
about-
would you say that this bill doesn't affect the lives of regular people? It affects the lives of a lot of Pontiacers.
It does
All
affect.
Pontiacers, really.
It does affect a lot of Pontiacers, but what you mean here is that the regulation from 25% to 50%, is that what you address here?
No, you have a quote in the Equity as of, or in the Pontiac Journal as of a few weeks ago
Yeah.
that says there is no evidence that Bill 96 would make much of a difference in the lives of people. That is the same thing that the CEQ is trying to sell to people in the Pontiac. That is taking people in the Pontiac for fools. It is basically saying, I'll stand here, I'll say whatever rubbish I can to try to sell Quebec City's message to Pontiacers. That's the exact opposite of the job of a representative of Pontiac.
Okay. Well, so can I just go a little back to the repealing versus?
Yes.
So why is the changing the provisions the Liberal Party proposes or Quebec Some's there? Why is that insufficient towards effectively addressing the issue in Bill 96?
Well, it's a divisive. Any time Bill 96 is around and kicking, it's a threat to minority rights within our region and the province. Adding to it, such as the Liberals did, isn't the way to go about it. You can't build a battleship and then say you're against war. It doesn't work that way. What we've, well, no, it's true. If you help build something that's meant to divide Quebecers, that's meant to target minority rights, especially here in the Pontiac, we have a large Anglophone account. You can't back them into the corner with this bill that's just, excuse me, that's completely designed to target minority rights. You need to remove it at the roots.
I don't think the CAC had that intention. I think they're trying to protect the French language. I think they're trying, but they did not consult everyone. They rushed it through, And you know what, Pontiac is, not just that, they applied this to across the province, but Pontiac is not like Saint-Jean. Pontiac is not, like
Last 30 seconds.
Exactly, and I agree with that. I
It's,
think the CAQ
ridiculous.
has wrote in the bill in the back room without consulting anybody, without seeing what the effects would be on the film. That's why Quebec Solidaire, while we're amending it, we're open to discuss with English minorities, English communities to see what we can do better, because we're willing to protect French, to work with minorities, to make it so we can encourage French in every space, in the public space, to really protect it, but in an inclusive way that doesn't target minority rights.
But the problem with that is that you're saying that businesses of 10 employees should have the same English language or French language regulations
But we're
as
gonna give them
Bell Canada.
resources. We're gonna give
We're out
them
of time.
resources so they can talk to the government.
Those are
in French.
family
We're gonna
establishments. Those are
give them
family
the resources,
farms.
the financial resources,
don't
and
need
the
to target
administrative
them.
resources so they can do that.
Okay, well, unfortunately, we're out of time on Bill 96.
Fortunately for you.
So another major issue here is access to healthcare, especially at the Pontiac Hospital. So please outline your vision. How would you improve access and quality of healthcare offered in Pontiac? And I'll start with Terrence.
Perfect. I'll say it before my podium here.
You're getting used to it.
Actually, you broke me yesterday and I was not even there. He told, in my introduction speech, I thought about a private hospital in Charleville. Let me be objective here. What if the hospital in Charleville is private and it must deserve everyone that lives in Pontiac, and it gets new, I would say, customer, because now they're not sick people anymore, they're customers to the hospital. And we'll bring new customers from Gatineau, from Ottawa, from all the other space. What if that project is on the table? I think this project is viable. This project does exist somewhere else in the world, and I'm pretty sure it will find the buyers on the private sectors. The Charleville Hospital could be private, could deserve with the RAMQ all the citizens of Pontiac and get new customers from Ottawa, from Gatineau, and from the other place. Why? Because it will be faster, better condition. I think it will grow over there.
Okay. I'll move on to Will. Just at the start, maybe keep it with your own vision, and then we can have a conversation about that.
Yeah. So we're completely against privatization. I think the creeping of privatization to our healthcare has slowly degraded our public efforts, public work efforts, and such. Our public healthcare systems. We're going to be getting rid of Bill 10. We're going to make sure that small regional councils can come back with boards that can actually tell us what they need. We're also going to get rid of the PREM, the Plans Régionaux d'Effectifs Médicaux. Yes, that's it. We want to ensure that there's going to be an actual arrangement of health professionals in the region, so there's not like awkward clumps of individuals in different cities. We're going to ensure that resources are actually moved to smaller regions such as rural areas and the Pontiac. So that's what we're doing.
For the Pontiac, for a rural region like the Pontiac, at Quebec Solidaire, we think that we need to, first of all, decentralize healthcare. For a lot of years under the Liberal Party, under the CAQ, there's been a lot of, first of all, austerity, then inaction. What we need to do is finance our public health system and decentralize it, so we can have local clinics, proximity clinics, so that everybody in Pontiac can have access to health services on their first line and not rely on only doctors and emergency care, but can see a health professional quickly and efficiently. That's why we're going to invest up to $500 million a year into a network of local clinics. That's why we're going to invest $1.5 billion a year into bettering work conditions, because we know that bettering our public health system, especially here in the region with the proximity of Ontario, is by bettering work conditions, by bettering salaries, and we need to put resources towards that. And we also need to revisit some administrative issues like the temps supplémentaire obligatoire. And what we want to do is eliminate that and put in place a self-governance schedule for professionals on the field, so they can have some autonomy in their workplace. Privatization is not on the table for us. We're actually going to reinvest in our public health system that has been put to the side by previous governments.
There's a crisis in the healthcare system in the Pontiac and in the Outaouais right now. It is at a level that it has never been before. There are currently at the Pontiac Hospital 17% of nursing positions that are staffed in the care unit. If you look at the Gatineau Hospital, it's 35% of the operating block, where people from across the region go to get their surgeries. Obstetrics is still closed here. Emergency room in Gatineau closed last year for the entire summer. The surgeries are backed up and the delays are getting longer and longer and longer. And all of this is because we are short-staffed, because we don't have enough healthcare professionals in our network. The first thing we need to do is look at the regional difference here in the Outaouais, find a regional solution, and we put one on the table during this campaign. The Liberal Party put one, and that is to say we need equal pay for our healthcare professionals as Ontario. It's not a measure for Montreal, it's not a measure for Quebec City or for Saguenay, but if we don't do that here, we will keep losing our nurses, we'll keep losing our mental health professionals, we'll keep losing our social workers to Ottawa, to Brantford, to Pembroke. The only way to dig us out of this situation right now, or to stop digging and to fix this situation right now, is to pay our healthcare professionals the exact same amount. Doesn't mean you don't work on working conditions generally. You do need, at some point, better ratios on patient versus personnel. It does mean you need to stop forced overtime in some parts, which generally, thankfully, we've been managing to avoid for the most part here in the Pontiac. But it's an issue. It's a real issue that needs to be resolved. And if you don't fix the pay issue, you'll never have enough staff to fix the ratio issue. And if you don't fix the ratio issue, you'll never be able to fix the forced overtime issue. It starts with paying our healthcare professionals equal salary. That means, and it's in our platform, $25,000 more in salary per nurse that is currently working in the Pontiac community group.
Okay, the Green Party of Quebec, I mean, the budget for the healthcare system is about $54 billion, right, for this fiscal year, which is a lot of money. So what we believe here is that we should be able to supply good service with that amount of investment in the system as it is right now. What we need to do is to do kind of a large audit of the health system, look at everything. What are the resources? Where do we lack resources? Where in which region, we need to put a bit more effective, decentralize, bring the decision back in the Outaouais for the Outaouais region, in the Pontiac, like the idea of building this new hospital in Gatineau, it's going to be there in 10 years. We're having issues, supplying 300 nurses right now, for 300 beds right now, the hospital, to have the staff. Now we're going to double that, It's just, and not just that, now you rely only in one hospital, like we had issue like in Montreal, or is it I can't remember the name of the hospital, with the mushroom, like the new, it just started like, so I mean, if you have that in one big hospital, you're stuck, they should invest more in Charville, don't close Wakefield, make it a bit bigger, and renovate all, so that these questions, these decisions, we have professionals working in the system, they can figure that out, and we need to stop to just emergency, put millions there, because we're just fixing something that's broken. That's so decentralization, privatization, not at all, unless it's recommended by the committee, for, let's say, you need a blood sample, stuff like that. There's a few things that we might be able to do, and it's going to be an advantage to the system. And we need to manage, like you said, like we need the particular status for Outaouais. We need that. We need to increase the salary, and that's about the key things for the Green Party.
Let's open it up.
I'm going to start by addressing the empty chair over here.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody can tell me why in the world the governing party thinks it's a good idea to close the Wakefield Hospital. I'm not surprised that the empty chair is giving me no answer.